Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your announcer speaking. Welcome to the World's on Fire podcast. It gets underway after the countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now is your official announcer, Dead President Kennedy. And a gracious good evening to you and yours. Thank you so much, initial announcer. This is your official announcer, Dead President Kennedy. And I say to you that Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, a position once occupied by my brother who did a fantastic job. But in this case, Attorney General Pam Bondi has revealed herself to be one of the biggest fucking idiots in the history of fucking idiots. Be that as it may that as it be, here is your host for World's on Fire. Give it up for John McIntyre. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Dead President Kennedy, always handling the announcing duties with aplomb. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Pittsburgh, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. This is the World's on Fire podcast. I am your resident nattering nabob of negativism, John McIntyre. Here now some headlines from the week that was. Will anyone else besides Epstein and Maxwell ever be held accountable for sex trafficking? Don't hold your breath. One South Carolina congresswoman says you wouldn't believe the famous powerful people in the Epstein files. Yes, we would. Attorney General Pam Bondi makes a complete fool of herself. In fairness, she is a complete fool. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnik is accused of being a fucking liar. In fairness, he is a fucking liar. The Trumpies are getting downright Orwellian, monitoring the online search habits of Democratic members of Congress. A new investigation suggests that Dr. Wecht was right. Kurt Cobain was murdered. And a legendary Pittsburgh baseball player with one of the coolest baseball names ever transfers to that big ballpark in the sky. We are live at Baby Boomer Central, where Jack Kennedy has my back, along with John Paul George and Ringo, who fancy themselves a podcast every now and again. And as an ancient baby boomer warrior might just say at about this moment in time, let's rock and roll. This is the story of rich and powerful pedophiles being protected by powerful people who may not be rich, but have no ethics, no morals, and very likely no soul. Who's a powerful pedophile? Donald Trump, for one. He was already found liable for sexual assault. We know he likes to grab women by the pussy, and he was once sued in court allegedly raping a 13-year-old girl. Who are the powerful protecting the likes of Trump? Attorney General Pam Bondi, who has catapulted ahead of the likes of RFK Jr. and Kristi Noem for the most laughably incompetent cabinet official. If you watch Pam make a fool of herself testifying to Congress this week, you know what an obnoxious, worthless moron she is. Here are just two things that stood out to me, offering plenty of evidence that she is complicit in a cover-up. Number one, she lied about Ghislaine Maxwell and the transfer to a much cushier prison, a Club Fed. HuffPost reporting that Pam falsely claimed in her sworn testimony in Congress that Jeffrey Epstein's partner in child sex trafficking was not transferred to a lower-level prison, even though her Justice Department moved Ghislaine Maxwell to a Club Fed-type facility last summer. Now, why would you deny the truth that everyone knows to be true? Because you don't want anyone to know that your boss pulled strings to get her a cushier deal so she'd keep her big, fat mouth shut. Pat Howe and Patrick Emmy McBride. Number two, Pam is trying to change the subject. And how do we know that? Because Congressman Jerry Nadler asked her, how many people have been indicted other than Epstein in the Epstein scandal? And her response was, the Dow is over 50,000 right now. NASDAQ is smashing records, while Americans' retirement accounts are booming. That's what we should be talking about, said Pammy. She's being questioned about the trafficking and rape of young women at the hands of despicable child predators, but instead says, nothing to see here. Hey, how about that economy? I'm sure you'll recall that Trump a few days ago said the country ought to be moving on from the Epstein files. This is just what AG Blondie was doing following his lead. Why would he say that? What's wrong with trying to get some justice for these victims? How does an ongoing criminal investigation hurt in any way the United States of America? Well, it doesn't and it won't. But every day we talk about it, more might be revealed about Trump and his pedo-friendly friends. This scandal is bigger than Watergate, bigger than Iran-Contra, bigger than a bread box, bigger than your head. And Pam Bondi's shallow obfuscation will only drive more interest. She also declined to apologize to victims present in the room, victims whom she has declined to meet with. And of course, Trump recently told Marjorie Taylor Greene that the victims don't deserve a White House meeting because he has contempt for women in general, and rape is Donald Trump's middle name. Or if it isn't, It should be. It might as well be. The Trumpies have zero respect for the separation of powers. First, they would only let members of Congress look at the unredacted Epstein files in a small room with only a few computers. Why? Well, for one thing, this allows them to track what members of Congress are searching for within the Epstein files. How do we know this egregious act was committed? Only because a member of the media spotted Bondi's paperwork featuring a particular member in a particular file. CBS News reports one of the printouts that Bondi referenced during the hearing was a list labeled Jayapal Pramila search history, referring to Democratic Representative Pramila Jayapal of Washington State. The document listed out at least 8 different files from the Justice Department trove of Epstein records, including their file numbers and brief descriptions of their contents, according to the images snapped by photojournalists who were covering the hearing. Jayapal said in a statement, "It is totally inappropriate and against the separation of powers for the DOJ to surveil us as we search the Epstein files. Bondi showed up with a burned book that held a printed search history of exactly what emails I searched," she said. "This is outrageous and I intend to pursue this and stop spying on members." Stop this spying on members, said the Congresswoman. Congressman Jamie Raskin said, "This is just getting Orwellian with these people," adding they better cut it out immediately now that they have been caught. And they have been caught red-handed. The World's on Fire podcast is brought to you by Venmo. We're going to thank some generous Venmo contributors at the end of the broadcast, but you can become a Venmo contributor right now at John-McIntyre-27. Help the cause here. This is a low-budget operation, indeed a low-budget, low-rent operation, but still, we need a couple of bucks to help the cause. By Ruby's Wine House, the best damn wine house in Allegheny County. It's in Coraopolis, and you can check it out at rubyswinehouse.net. And by the Brillo Box, 4104 Penn Avenue in Bloomfield, site of the next John McIntyre Dangerously Live Comedy Talk Show. We're still rounding out the get list and confirming the date. Stay tuned for announcements on that. You're watching The World's on Fire. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnik is a fucking liar. In fairness, so are most of the rest of the Trump cabinet members. Actually, I should say all of them. They are liars or idiots or both, and mostly both. Lutnik is yet another rich and powerful asshole palling around with Jeffrey Epstein, but Lutnik at one point claimed he and his wife could tell what a scumbag Epstein was. So that's it, they said. They cut off Epstein for good. And he said that happened in 2005. But in the Epstein files, it details how he had lunch with Epstein on the island in 2012. Now he says he was with his wife and kids and a friend wife and kids, and they were all busy on a family vacation. Nothing to see here. It's practically a scene from the Brady Bunch, and that actually may be true, but he's still a fucking liar because he claimed to have cut off ties 7 years earlier. Why is he lying? What is he hiding? Trump is naturally standing by Lutnik because if you're a scumbag, Trump has your back. Oh, and by the way, the two had business dealings as of 2014, once again proving he's a fucking liar. Lutnik claims nothing to hide, absolutely nothing, he said. Then why did you lie about the last time you saw your boy Jeffrey? There are rich and powerful assholes who have not been held accountable. One of them is Lutnik, and the other, of course, would be the President of the United States. You are watching The World is on Fire. The Epstein files contains a veritable who's who of rich and powerful men who enjoyed hanging with Jeffrey. The New York Times reporting that among them was Elon Musk and Bill Gates, as you've probably heard. Hi, David Roth. Hi, Marcy Kronzek. Hello, David Roth. The files appear to contain at least 4,500 documents that mention Mr. Trump. Mind you, thousands and thousands of mentions, but 4,500 separate documents. Gee, with all those mentions, I wonder why the Clintons have been asked to testify before Congress, but not Mr. Trump. Meantime, a 2013 email exchange between Richard Branson, the British billionaire, and Mr. Epstein suggests that the two had a warm, familiar relationship, built at least in part around their interest in women. Mr. Branson emailed Epstein, "Anytime you're in the area, would love to see you as long as you bring your harem." Ha 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 ha. Pedophile humor is so very amusing. Mr. Epstein exchanged multiple messages throughout 2013, with Steve Tisch, co-owner of the New York Giants football team. In some of the exchanges, Mr. Epstein appeared to be connecting Mr. Tisch with women of a specific ethnicity and described their bodies in vulgar terms. Quote, "I have a friend I think you might have enjoyed having dinner with," Mr. Epstein wrote to Prince Andrew in Britain in 2010. In a later email, Mr. Epstein said his friend was 26-year-old, Russian, clever, beautiful, and trustworthy. The prince replied he would be delighted to meet this woman. Poor prince, stripped of his title, and now he has to live in an inferior mansion. You know they're lying because their lips are moving. That's right, David. Every day of Trump's administration is worse than Watergate. I would agree, Marcy. Patrick is watching. Now, South Carolina MAGA Congresswoman Nancy Mace is not only a nutbag, she's a drunk. So you can take this with a rim of salt if you wish. But Nancy has seen the unredacted Epstein files, and she says some of the names mentioned are truly humdingers. I'm guessing they may have also received a humdinger or two. There may have been more than one Woody aside from Alan. She confessed this revelation to British talking head Piers Morgan. Quote, "You would be shocked, Piers, at some of the names that I have seen, that I've come across in the DOJ emails that the DOJ is protecting," she said. And we're talking about people on both sides of the aisle. We're talking about famous people, rich people, people in power, prime ministers, former presidents, etc. Media personalities that are named in these files, added the Congresswoman. According to The Hill, some U.S. senators have only begun to get a clue regarding the gravity of the crimes. Quote, "I've not been one of the members who has glommed onto this as an issue," said Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. "I've sort of intentionally deferred to others to find out about it. But a 9-year-old victim? Wow," said the senator who was just getting a clue. Lummis added, "Initially, my reaction to all this was, I don't care. I don't see what the big deal is. But now I see what the big deal is, and it's worth investigating." Senator, you think? You are watching. The world is on fire. You know, sometimes in life, if you're absolutely fucked, there's no harm in trying a Hail Mary. But you're already fucked, so what do you got to lose? Hence, Ghislaine Maxwell's offer to sing like a canary for Congress if Trump grants her clemency. Now, why the fuck would Trump do that? He's already purchased her silence, at least where Trump is involved, by transferring her to the cushy Club Fed from the more serious prison that she was originally sent to. In this week's deposition, she took the 5th. And not that this isn't obvious already, but if you need more evidence that a cover-up is in full swing, look no further than transferring Ghislaine to a spot so cushy that she hangs out with support puppies. Ironically, that's what they used to call the teenage girls that Ghislaine and Jeff were raping and pillaging. Committee Chair Representative James Comer, R. of Kentucky, said that after the deposition, he does not think she should be granted any special type of immunity or clemency. Maxwell was convicted in 2021 of federal sex trafficking charges, including conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, participation in sex trafficking conspiracy, and sex trafficking of a minor, and she is serving a 20-year sentence. I will give Ghislaine this. She takes a licking and keeps on ticking. She lost in her attempt to appeal to the Supreme Court, and she's since launched a separate action challenging her conviction, which is pending. So she's still fighting it out in the courts. Life in the Ghislaine surely makes you lose your mind. They should be hanging with Jeff soon. Too soon, little hanging joke from Mark Howell, everybody. And now with a word about Ruby's Winehouse and Coriopolis, here is Trump cabinet member RFK Jr. "This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I say to you that people used to think I was the stupidest fucking cabinet member on the Trump cabinet because I was unconcerned about measles and I am a vax denier. However, I believe Kristi Noem has proved that she is the fucking biggest idiot, and I am happy about that I have been surpassed in the general public perception. Yes, I may put dead bear carcasses and or a dead whale carcass on my automobile and drive around, but at least I don't kill the family dog and the family goat. Be that as it may, it has nothing to do with the fact that Ruby's Winehouse is the best damn wine bar in Allegheny County. It's in Coriopolis. They always give you a fair pour. They have amazing seasonal cocktails. They have incredible Italian food. And I am telling you, you've got to go to Ruby's Winehouse in Coriopolis. It is classy, but it is not pretentious. It is a family atmosphere, but it's still a nice restaurant atmosphere. You know, like better than a family-style restaurant, but not as pretentious as something with a great view and an overpriced menu. So go to Ruby's Winehouse in Coriopolis. I am telling you, as sure as I'm standing here, as sure as I'm a weird motherfucker, the weirdest motherfucker that the Kennedy clan has ever produced, so I am certain that Ruby's Winehouse is the best damn wine bar in Allegheny County. Check it out, rubyswinehouse.net. Thank you so much, R.F. Kennedy Jr. You know, you might consider clearing your throat. Just a thought. So just because you hire a scumbag who you didn't know was a scumbag, should you have to quit your job because it turns out the guy you hired is a scumbag? The answer is not necessarily, at least according to British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Starmer had the misfortune or bad judgment, call it what you will, of hiring Peter Mandelson as the UK ambassador to the US, despite his disclosed ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Oopsie doopsie. Some British lawmakers were initially calling for Starmer's head on a platter, but things seem to have settled down for now. To his credit, Starmer fired Mandelson in September after published emails revealed his friendship with Epstein. Not only was Mandelson a creep, but documents suggest that Mandelson shared sensitive government information with Epstein after the 2008 global financial crisis. And it includes records of payments totaling $75,000 in 2003 and 2004 from Epstein to accounts linked to Mandelson. There are also chatty, jokey messages pointing to a much closer relationship than Epstein and Mandelson had disclosed previously. The prime minister now is trying to persuade his party members to back him so he can keep his gravy-sucking job. Starmer is hoping the new released emails will show the scale of Mandelson's lies about his time to Epstein. And if they don't illustrate what a lying dog-faced pony soldier Mandelson was, Starmer could look like an idiot, and that could be trouble. But as I say, it appears Starmer is weathering the storm thus far.
Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. It was an end of a lifetime. Blah, 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 blah.
Jim says, snort some coke off. Oh, whatever. There's a coke snorting joke in there somewhere, and I can't find it. This is also Sick and Twisted, says Pat. I hope I live long enough to see it resolved and everyone doing time. And Paul Haley is watching. And Paul Haley says, is Ruby's Winehouse pretentious? Asking for a friend. No, as it turns out, it is classy but not pretentious. But Paul Haley, thank you for asking. So Elmer Fudd likes Ruby's Winehouse? No. There is a similarity between Elmer Fudd and I'm Hunting Wabbit. RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has the distinctive Boston accent. There may be the difference between him and Elmer Fudd, who was more of a generic Midwestern accent, I would say. But there is a similarity. Thank you for noticing. So there is seemingly very little accountability for all the pedophile scumbags in the Epstein files. But one guy lost his wife, who was not pleased when the Epstein files revealed that her husband stayed in touch with Epstein well beyond his criminal conviction. Singer and actress Brooke Josephson has announced that she and her husband, producer Barry Josephson, have split up. The news comes after Barry Josephson's emails with Jeffrey Epstein were revealed. Parade reports those emails revealed that Josephson and Epstein remained close friends long after Epstein was convicted in 2008 of procuring a child for prostitution. On Insta, Brooke broke the news. Barry Josephson and I are going through a divorce. I was not aware of Barry's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein during our entire marriage. I respectfully request privacy and prayers for our children and I during this time. Thank you for all who have shown compassion and respect. Parade magazine reporting that Barry Josephson borrowed more than $330,000 from Epstein in 2011 and 2012 to pay tax bills. The site says that their emails also showed Josephson and Epstein discussed a young, attractive woman with an insane rack that Josephson tried to convince Epstein to hire. Barry issued a statement of his own, quote, "There's no excuse for what I said in some of my emails. The language was crude and juvenile, and I'm ashamed." Yeah, people are often ashamed about something after they get caught. Timothy Gahn. I'm just refreshing this because it allows for new comments in case you're wondering why I'm fondling the screen. Our corruption is corrupted. I agree, David. Will you use Mike Tomlin on here during February sweeps? I don't know. That's a thought. Marcy, is there too much breaking news about Savannah's mother? Yeah, I'm just waiting. Wake me when they find her. Don't get me wrong. I'm interested in the story, and I feel bad for Savannah, and naturally her mother, as we all do. But does Melania care? I do not care, because I got to have sex with Jeffrey Epstein, but I was a grown-up at the time. And Jeffrey Epstein has a tiny little mushroom dick shaped like an egg, but it is still less disgusting than the Donald's. And so I am unscathed, and I do not care. And scene. The stories of ICE agents either kidnapping or kicking the shit out of people who may have a perfect right to be in this country are numerous and legendary. Here's a local example, courtesy of the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. Randy Cordova Flores, 36, remains in custody at the Northern Regional Correctional Facility in Moundsville, West Virginia. Originally from Peru, Cordova Flores was detained after a Springfield police officer stopped him for allegedly failing to use a turn signal. Now, how does ICE get to... What does a traffic stop have to do with ICE agents? That's ridiculous to begin with. Cordova Flores has a pending asylum status case. He has been in the United States for nearly 3 years. He works as a landscaper, but also took jobs as a food delivery driver during the winter months. Cordova Flores has a real ID Pennsylvania driver's license, a social security card, and a current work permit. So once again, he is not one of the worst of the worst. He's here legally. His status is pending right now, but he has every right to be in this country. An online fundraiser in support of Cordova Flores family has gathered more than 21 grand so far. ICE agents are kidnapping innocent civilians, and if you voted for Trump, you might as well be in the Nazi party. Debbie Cassini. I did not see Debbie Cassini coming. But then how many have? All MAGA assholes do is project. All they did last presidency was claim that Biden had weaponized the Department of Justice, and all they've done during Trump's current term is weaponize the Department of Justice. Several of Trump's high-profile enemies or perceived enemies have been indicted on the flimsiest of premises. Take the lawmakers who recorded a video reminding Americans in the armed services that they need not follow an illegal order. They are indeed allowed to say that. It's called freedom of speech. But Trumpian assholes said it was treason. These people should be hanged. You know, like hang Mike Pence. So this week, a grand jury laughed this administration's attempted indictment out of court because it was flimsy, baseless, and fucking ridiculous. NBC reports it's exceedingly rare for federal grand juries to say prosecutors failed to meet the probable cause threshold for an indictment, and typically happens only in a handful of times each year in the vast federal judicial system. As it happened this time, it happened this time because the base was utterly absurd from the get-go. The Trump administration officials failed to convince a single juror. The case was utterly absurd from the get-go. I was wondering what that typo was all about. Trump administration officials failed to convince a single juror that they had met the threshold to bring charges against Democratic lawmakers. Federal grand juries have between 16 and 23 members, with 12 needed to advance an indictment. The point is they could not convince one fucking grand juror that these lawmakers were guilty of anything, and that is because these lawmakers were not guilty of anything. You are watching. The world is on fire, and so is my nose. So bipartisanship is a rare thing these days. Everyone in Congress is constantly at each other's throats. So thank God there is a particular niche involving some politicians who were bipartisan and are bipartisan and want to be bipartisan and have bipartisanship rule. And wait a minute. Yeah, I'm getting some new information. Yes, the National Governors Association, until very recently, was attempting to be bipartisan when all 50 state governors would meet in one place regardless of their party. But somebody fucked that up this year. Can you believe that? Take a wild guess as to who would have fucked all that up. It was Donald Trump. He disinvited the only black guy. And that was the beginning of it. And now they've canceled the whole fucking meeting. I spent several years interviewing world-renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht on television and radio, and then several years interviewing him on stage, which was almost always sold out, which is why I'm credit card debt-free today. Dr. Wecht believed the CIA killed JFK. He thinks somebody other than Sirhan fired the bullets that killed Bobby Kennedy. He thinks Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. I bring this up because there is an update on the murder of rock singer and guitarist Kurt Cobain. The Daily Mail reports an unofficial private sector team of forensic scientists has put fresh eyes on Cobain's autopsy and crime scene materials, bringing in Brian Burnett, a specialist who previously worked on cases involving overdoses followed by gunshot trauma. Long story short, this guy agreed with Dr. Wecht that it would have been incredibly awkward for Cobain to shoot himself with a long shotgun. Also, he put his heroin paraphernalia neatly back in the box. Why would he care about being neat if he was about to commit suicide? Burnett believes it was a homicide. I never saw Nirvana live, although it's a trivia point, and it's neither here nor there, but I did see Courtney Love live on the Letterman show in the studio, and she flashed her breasts. But this does not necessarily exonerate her from having something to do with the murder of Kurt Cobain, which I'm not suggesting she did, but I'm not suggesting she didn't. Anyway, Dr. Wecht was right as far as I'm concerned, and this is fresh evidence. Alex Trebek, David Roth, how does that poor Carlos, the person of interest in the Guthrie case? Yeah, but they let him go at least, didn't they? By the way, election fraud is virtually non-existent. Yes, you're right. Melanie just got here. Hello. Hi, Melanie. I haven't seen you in a while. Feel free to watch the beginning of the rant if you like, because I'm almost done here. Has Melania watched the gay hockey show? Yes, because I like when the male penises rub up against each other. And the hockey people are especially big and muscular. And I like muscular people with big penises like the athletes, unlike the fat orange piece of shit that I've been married to for several years. So I like the gay show, gay hockey. Finally, when I was a kid, I started playing sandlot baseball. Sometime like 9 or 10 years old, as all male baby boomers did. I think it was a law. And I became a fan of the Chicago Cubs. And one of the things I loved about Major League Baseball players at the time is that sometimes I thought they had the coolest names. And one of those names was a legendary Pirates reliever, Elroy Face. Elroy Face, who died at 97 years young this year. Face helped the Pirates win the 1960 World Series. Now, for the record, I was only 3 years old in 1960. But Elroy Face played through 69. That would explain how I came upon the Pirates pitcher back in the day. Fast forward to many years later here in Pittsburgh. I'm hosting a talk radio show. There's a name I see on the call board. It is Elroy Face. My heart skipped a beat. I took the call and I just had to tell him, dude, you got one of the coolest baseball names ever. Elroy Face seemed to appreciate it. Sports Illustrated wrote long ago this about Elroy Face. Relief pitchers generally are big, powerful fellows who stalk out of the bullpen and blow the opposition down with raw power. But Roy Face looks like the prize in the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. He's only 5'8". He wears false teeth, and his expression is as mournful as a man who just had been drafted. But what Face lacks in size and beauty, he makes up in determination. He throws so hard it sometimes seems that his right arm will jump out of its socket. He puts so much oomph into his pitches that all 155 pounds of him quiver, says a teammate, like a little old wet mouse shaking itself dry. R.I.P. Elroy Face. Ladies and gentlemen, I asked you for Venmo contributions last week, and a couple of you came through. God bless you. Mark Howe, thank you so much for your generous Venmo contribution. Kent Morford, thank you so much for your generous Venmo contribution. This, by the way, is brought to you by Venmo at John-McIntyre-27 and by the Brillo Box in Bloomfield, home of the next John McIntyre Dangerously Live Comedy Talk Show. The date and guests announced soon. And by Ruby's Wine House. As I may have mentioned, it's the best damn wine bar in Allegheny County. I never thought that Ruby, you know, it's true. Elmer Fudd does sound like RFK Jr. This broadcast is also brought to you by Bella Notte Pizza in the Strip District. Bella Notte Pizza, home of barbecued chicken pizza. Bella Notte Pizza, just down the street from La Prima and just down the street from Colangelo's. Bella Notte barbecued chicken pizza. It's not just good, it's fucking good. It's not just good, it's fucking good. This is Bernie Sanders. If you need an authentic Jewish space laser, just dial me up, 1-800-JEW-LASER. That's 1-800-JEW-LAZR. An authentic George Soros Jewish space laser is yours for the purchasing. And it wouldn't be a World's on Fire podcast without my famous Bud Dwyer imitation. Thank you very much. All right. Feel free to Venmo me some money like Mark Howe and Kent Morford did. Dawn McBride is watching. Hello, Dawn McBride. The sound effects machine, the kazoo, and the harmonica, thanks to frequent viewers and generous people, Bill and Hank. Questions for Ask John Anything? You got them? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You don't have to. It's not a law. It's not a requirement. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh, ha 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 ha, or to sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time it's time to load my bong, bong, bong. I'm going to refresh this screen. It's once again doing that annoying thing where it just says somebody is watching over and over again, as opposed to feeding me with your next. Bob Ben says, cool. That's probably in reference to the Elroy Face. Melanie says, start streaming those for goodness sake. No, because then people won't show up. Fred, I played shows upstairs at the Penn Cafe. Did you? Is that the same thing as the Brillo box? I need to try that North Homewood pizza, says Dre. I know there's a new one in Oakland I want to try. I never have tried the one in Regent Square. There's a bunch of pizza I want to try. I'm just too lazy to drive that far so far. Is Melania watching the Olympics? She's not watching the Olympics because she is too busy having sex with the man who runs security for the Trump Tower. And so I would much rather have the intercourse than watch the snowboarding and the scene. Mark Dispatakis, who's put many sections of the old Night Talk show, transferred it from VHS to YouTube. So if you ever want to have an old Night Talk show memory, why, Google it up on YouTube. Thanks to Mark Despotakis. It's on there. Any other questions for Ask John? Anything? Don McBride is watching. Don McBride is watching. But I'm not there. Well, Melanie Pitts, you have to be there. Maybe I may start streaming. I don't know. I'm streaming this. What am I reading right now? I just turned in my Johnny Carson book. I have 3 books on hold at the library as soon as I get there. One of them is 1929, the book by Andrew Ross Sorkin about how economic conditions today may be presenting themselves to indicate that we got a horrible recession coming. One is Football by the guy I just read a book by because my brother Bill sent it to me. Oh, yeah. Chuck Klosterman has written a book about football. Not an enthusiastic book like Go Football, but how it took over America and why we're all so addicted to it. So that one's on hold, the 1929 book. And, the one by the kid who was a reporter from Rolling Stone when he was a kid who's written a memoir. You saw the movie Almost Famous. He was responsible for that. So I'm not reading anything until one of those books comes in. But thank you for asking. What are you reading right now, Shelley? Anybody else? Any other questions for Ask John Anything? I'm still trying to get Mayor Corey, and he did answer me. I said, are you open on these 2 days, and either one of these 2 days? And he's referred it to his press secretary, whom I happen to know since I used to work for the city, so I'm going to start bothering her next week, see if I can nail the mayor down. Also, Bethany Hallam will be one of the guests. Assuming one of these 2 dates is good for the mayor. Any other questions for Ask John Anything? If you want to see the beginning of the rant, I will post it on my page and many other pages. Oh, Brillo Box was in the Penn Cafe. No kidding, Fred. That's interesting. So that's a long history for that small little space. I love that little space. My favorite Olympic memory, it's only one. It's the Miracle on Ice. That was the true time I really got into the Olympics, when the rookies or the amateurs of the United States beat the pros of the then Soviet Union. Played there with the Pittsburgh Blues Society. No kidding, Fred. Stream for me then. Well, I'm unfamiliar with the process. But, maybe I'll look into it. I don't see why you can't visit Pittsburgh and come to one of the shows, Melanie. All right. Lord willing, the Quick Don't Rise. We'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Any other questions for Ask John Anything? Last call. The new James Baldwin bio. That's what you're reading, Shelley Wolf. Well, that sounds very interesting, actually. How much of those off-season bucko moves, everybody? How about them? I don't know. I hope they amount to something. We still apparently need a left-handed pitcher. We still apparently could use a new third baseman. James Mark says, thanks to Chris Moore for his service. Best wishes on his retirement. Yes. The legendary African-American talk show host and journalist Chris Moore, his last show on KDK is this weekend. I used to be on the show with Chris when he hosted it called 4802, the chat show about the week in review of the news items on QED. And Chris was very good at many things, including hosting that show. And many of the times I would either follow Chris Moore or Chris Moore would follow me when I was filling in for various humans at KDKA. He was always cordial, and friendly and a consummate professional, and he is that. So I agree. Thank you, James Mark, for bringing that up. Anything else? I'm about ready to put a sock in it. All right. As I always say, we will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Be there. And I'm going to post the rant all over the place if you missed the beginning and you want to see it. See you next week. Be there. Aloha.